Hello, buddy. I just want to make a short little mini lecture on the Industrial Revolution, which was a very significant, an enormously significant movement within not only British politics, British history, but also kind of set the bar for our modern global economy, economic system, and set the precedent for modern contemporary international economics and developmental economics and industry and commerce and so forth. All the above, right? So before I even progress into my little mini lecture, I just want to preface that really my motivation for construing these little lectures is because, on a personal level, they're very it's really good preparation for my future career endeavors and my future career ambitions. And it also really helps facilitate and develop and strengthen communication skills. So, which is very tantamount in my future career endeavors and ambitions and so forth. And third reason is because as someone who is voracious reader, someone who loves learning incessantly, I really like to teach and to share some of the fruits of which I've gathered. So, and the last reason is because I feel that these mini lectures, they could maybe they could be a little bit beneficial to anyone who's watching it. Oh my neck. To anyone who's watching it. So, in that respect, I hope you enjoy it. For all those who are repulsed, which is a very strong word, by my little lectures or my little videos, by all means, you could unfriend me. It's totally fine with me. Really don't even care. But to all those who enjoy it, thank you. Thank you for watching. Okay, so the Industrial Revolution. Before I even explore these 10 reasons of which I've compiled for the Industrial Revolution, I just want to talk to you a little bit about, very quickly, what the Industrial Revolution was and why it was so significant. And then to conclude, after I share with you guys 10 reasons, argue 10 reasons, sorry, 10 causes, catalysts of the Industrial Revolution, I just want to quickly explore the implications, both in Western Europe, North America, the Western civilization, but more significantly, global South, the global South, former colonies of the European empires, the Western European empires. So, the Industrial Revolution was this enormous, this enormous movement, which took place in 18th century Britain, England, up until the beginning of World War II. Beginning, if not end of World War II. Beginning of World War II. So this is a movement which really took place over the course of, we're talking about 250 years. So we're talking about a quarter of a millennium. So it's a very momentous, very significant series of events within world history, because unfortunately, whatever the Brits do for the past 500, 600 years, every other nation kind of more or less follows suit, with the exception of Japan. They kind of do their own thing. Um, Russia kind of does its own thing. China kind of does its own thing. But for the most part, a lot of nations, they kind of uh, try to what's a respectful word? Emulate. I think that's a kind of good word. Draw parallels to whatever the Brits do. Um, okay, so Industrial Revolution, again, why it's so significant is because it really set the bar. It really elevated the bar, and it really set the bar. It set a precedent for economics, international economics, for commerce, for industry, for microeconomics, for developmental macroeconomics, for international economics, for political economy. It just set the bar. It just elevated the bar inconceivably high, and it really set the tone for how developmental economics is construed and so forth. Um, and with the Industrial Revolution, so many other movements preceded the Industrial Revolution. And the Industrial Revolution is really what caused this unrivaled, unparalleled, unsurpassed economic prosperity, and really which really led to Britain being a global empire, to Great Britain, and really consolidated and secured their longevity, their imperialism, their hegemony, their international control, and so forth. So 10 reasons. So the first reason, I want to make this video short because I have to go to sleep soon. So the first reason, the first cause, the first source of cause, catalyst of the Industrial Revolution was going from traditional agricultural enclosed feudal economies to what's called market economies. This is like economics 101. So in economics, obviously you have different economic systems. I'm not going to explore that, but very quickly, what feudal enclosed traditional economies were they consisted of like peasants. They consisted of farmers who kind of till the land. Respectfully speaking, very unskilled, again, respectfully speaking, very uneducated people who tilled the land, who had crops, who had animals, and so forth. And that's really how capital really developed. And then outside of that, after agriculture economies, traditional economies, you have something called you have something called mixed economies. And mixed economies, in a nutshell, they're the kind of market, they're the kind of economic systems of which we have in the Soviet Union. So they have kind of like cyclical systems where every 5 years, bureaucrats, the centralized state, they would develop policy, economic policy. Unfortunately, like that had really disastrous consequences, economic consequences, and the Soviet Union is an example. But they have something called market economies, and market economies are really the bedrock, the underpinning of capitalism. And capitalism is not a very it's not a very popular word, especially among the left. I'm a conservative liberal, so I'm very kind of center left. But capitalism has a very bad rep among those on the left. So, um, but capitalism, for all its ills, in my opinion, it's really the only economic system that that is feasible within our modern world. So what happened by making the transference from agriculture economic systems to market economic systems, you had something called the commodification of land. So what happened is that by going to market systems, by the enclosure economic systems, that forced peasants off the land, and it forced them overnight to kind of congregate into cities. And they sold this land, they commercialized this land, and now this land was profitable. You had profits, right? And with this profits, people started investing. People started developing industry and so forth. And then people started building things, and people started working with their hands. Factories started to develop, industry and commerce. You see the beginnings of industry and commerce by advancing into market economies, and you see mercantilism, you see trade and so forth. So this is really what really set the foundation for the Industrial Revolution. And second cause really was I wrote all this down. So the second cause was intellectual development. So so the thing is, in Europe, in continental Europe, you had all these movements. So you had the Age of Enlightenment, you had the Renaissance, you had Age of Reason, you had the Glorious Revolutions, you had all these various movements, right? But you had the scientific revolution, the scientific era, Age of Enlightenment, the era of reason. And really, in a nutshell, what this was is that historical traditional religions and a lot of religious dogma was being curbed, and people were kind of letting go of that, and people were more focused on science. This is really when you see the enormous advent, and a temporary respite from religion traditional religion, i.e., Christianity, and Catholicism. Well, Catholicism is Christianity, but people were moving more towards science and the age of reason. And really, really, why this is so significant in Britain is because France and Spain, their governments really discouraged this, whereas in England, they encouraged it. So you had, for example, Sir Isaac Newton, one of the greatest minds ever in world history. This is a man who invented calculus overnight, invented calculus, an entire system of mathematics in I think like 6 hours. Like that's how genius this man was. And you have Robert Boyle, another just total genius in science. So you had all these scientists developing really in Britain. You had a lot of scientists in France and Italy, but nowhere near to the degree as in England. So this intellectual development, it really set the stage for enormous scientific breakthroughs, which wasn't experienced to that degree, to that magnitude, in other states within Europe. And a third reason was the Industrial Enlightenment. So in this era, during the Scientific Revolution, during the Age of Reason, the Industrial Enlightenment, you had these things, quote unquote, men of action. So people were becoming very uh, people were no longer so focused on determinism and fatalism and so forth. People were more focused on creating their own fate, humanism and so forth, becoming more autonomous and so forth, trying to create their own fate, right? So that birthed a lot of ambitions and so forth. That birthed a lot of desires, inclinations to start developing things, to develop technology and so forth. Um, so you had all these factories which were developing and so forth. Soho was a very big one. Another one was what's another one? Okay, I forget. Um, but you had a lot of engineers who developed. You had a very famous engineer, Matthew Bolton, and he invented the steam. He invented steam chariot, which then preceded steam railways, steam ships, and so forth. And that was integral in the Industrial Revolution. Another reason was something called the quest for improvement, and the quest for improvement was this kind of philosophical disposition where people in Britain, like the elites, the noblemen, and so forth, they were perpetually looking to advance the nation, to advance society, to make enormous strides and contributions in England, and to really make England Great Britain. They were looking for greatness, enormous achievements, and so forth, excellence. That's really what they were after. So for the quest of improvement, railways, steamships, enormous factories were developed. And the fifth reason, and this is a very big reason, this is why England really led the Industrial Revolution. You have something called the Glorious Revolution. And this is very important in parliamentary systems, parliamentary democracies. So the Glorious Revolution, it kind of it separated the traditional monarchy. Parliament kind of Parliament kind of gained its sovereignty, kind of divorced, separated from Parliament, the British monarchy, and this is really what facilitated kind of parliamentary democracies and so forth. So with parliamentary monarchy, that facilitated a very democratized system of government, a very functional system of government, a very democratic system of government. And not only was it very democratic, you had a very established, very secure form of the rule of law. And the thing is that when the rule of law is very safeguarded, it's very functional, it's very healthy, it's very secure, that in turn fosters and facilitates enormous strides in science. So it fostered enormous scientific breakthroughs, commercial breakthroughs, entrepreneurship, and so forth, enormous business investments, and so forth. And that was a very big cause of the Industrial Revolution. The British government, when it separated from traditional monarchies and it had parliamentary systems, the Parliament really encouraged it really encouraged the Industrial Revolution. It encouraged innovation, ingenuity, technological advancements, and so forth. And the a sixth reason is mercantilism. So with mercantilism, um, mercantilism really is about trade. It's really about commerce and so forth. So again, the British government, they're really supporting entrepreneurs. They're supporting self-made men, quote unquote self-made men. They're really they're giving credence to trade, to commerce, which wasn't really experienced necessarily in France. The French government, they were more dissuaded to that. They were more inclined to more kind of centralized, bureaucratic leanings and tendencies. Um, and with mercantilism, you had these British trading exports, which had a trade, facilitated trade in all regions of the world. In America, they traded spices in India, they traded tea in China, silk in China. They had trading partners all across the world before colonialism. And another reason, a seventh reason was slavery. So in this period, during the Industrial Revolution, you had just under 2.5 million slaves, really consolidated from Western Africa, and these slaves they were migrated to the West Indies. Really, the West Indies. About 250,000 of them went to America. Some of them went to Britain, but really they were in the West Indies. And in the West Indies, they tilled the ground. They developed like a lot of not natural resources, but a lot of commodities. The biggest commodity being sugarcane, coffee being another one as well. And this really fueled the economy of Britain, which then in turn gave them credence to pursue the Industrial Revolution. Because without that, they wouldn't have the financial resources to facilitate the Industrial Revolution. And a ninth reason is banks and the stock exchange. So due to all this due to mercantilism, due to market economies and so forth, banks were being established. People were starting to invest, and this is the enormous stride in world history. People were getting returns on their investments and so forth. And with these investments, with the profits that people were incurring, with the capital that people were accruing, people started shopping. Overnight, in the span of 50 years, on Oxford, which is a street in, I believe, London, I think like 1,500 shops developed in the span of 50 years. A lot of countries in the world didn't even have a shop, right? So this is unprecedented. This is world history right here, right? Um, and a last reason, the 10th reason, I'm getting very tired right now. Um, a tenth cause of the Industrial Revolution really resides in this kind of uh, this kind of philosophical disposition among the British elites, and really it was about this ambition that one is not really tied to their past. They're not really tied to their forefathers. So if people in their lineage were agriculturalists, if they worked with their hands, if they were blue collar employees, uh, these people in during the Industrial Revolution, this era, uh, they could pursue something else. They could pursue skilled trades. They could pursue commerce and so forth. They could pursue far more lucrative endeavors. So that really was a cause, which was catalyst for the Industrial Revolution. I'm getting very tired right now, but the last thing, just to very conclude very quickly, the implications of the Industrial Revolution in pertinence to developmental economics is that a lot of these nations, which were former colonies of Britain, now that they've gained their independence, there's an ongoing debate about how they can develop. Should they model their economies after the Industrial Revolution? Do they themselves need an Industrial Revolution? And if so, do they require the same causes as Britain did, such as the Scientific Revolution, so on and so forth? Or are a lot of these nation states in the global South, are they to develop ingenuity and develop their own models? So that's an ongoing debate to be had in developmental economics. So I'm getting very tired right now, so I'll just conclude. But I apologize if my little lecture was a little bit uncohesive and incoherent and sporadic. But yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed my little lecture. I'm getting very tired right now, but I think I'll be developing more lectures in the future. So stay tuned for that. Peace.